But actually, as a regulatory body, I know what are the functions of each and every departments. But I think most of the people are, even the officers in the field of safety, are not aware of what is their jurisdiction, whether it is a, if you talk about the Oil India Safety Directorate, whether it is a statutory body, whether it is an advisory body. So a lot of doubts are there regarding their functioning and all these things. But if you are in a oil industry, especially in a refinery or other petrochemical industry, so the people working there, they are not aware of, they are very much aware of the OSD and all this. Normally, actually, I'm representing the Factories and Boilers Department, Kerala. So when we come across the inspections in various factories, at that time they will normally the factory people will tell about the audit conducted by the Oil India Safety Directorate. So actually, they are saying that it is a comprehensive audit conducted by OSD. So I don't know whether it is a approved audit, or it is a surprise check or something like that. So normally what they are saying is the officers from OSD are coming here as a surprise inspection. They are conducting audit and those. So this type of lot of doubts or ambiguities are there among our safety professionals, especially in the field of petrochemical industry and oil industry. So actually, I congratulate especially the Secretary, Dr. Ramesh, and Meenu and other executive members who are organizing a lot of webinars, especially during this COVID-19 period. So in various subjects. So this is also one of the very important subjects. And today, as mentioned here, Sri Krishna Gopal SP is very eminent speaker. I have gone through his biodata, and is very experienced person in this field. Definitely, his speech will give us and very is an open will give lot of ideas, lot of knowledge about OSD and about their functioning and what are the salient features. Everything I expect that from him, and I don't want to speak much more in this evening. And I welcome Sri Krishna Gopal to this function, as well as I formally inaugurate this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I welcome our Honorary Secretary of NSCKC, Dr. V.M. Ramesh, to deliver welcome address.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, my dear friends. Today we are blessed to have one of the program shared by. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. One of the program shared by National Safety Council Tamil Nadu chapter. Because this program was recently conducted at Tamil Nadu chapter, and I had a discussion with the Honorary Secretary, Mr. Raj Mohan of Tamil Nadu chapter, and he had given me the number of Mr. Krishna Gopal. So I also thought a lot of oil industry are there, so this will be benefiting to the industry. So why not we can have such a program? That is what this thing came into mind. So today we are having SP Krishna Gopal. He is an EHS specialist with over 32 years of experience in the operations and the safety of various petrochemical plants. He has been associated with Indian Oil Corporation Limited. He was working with Indian Oil Tanking for the last 15 years, heading HSSC, that is Health, Safety, Security and Environment. He has gained knowledge by working with the LPG, bulk terminal, bottling plant at Chennai, and POL terminal and jetty facility at Mumbai. During his entire tenure, he was deputed for commissioning LPG mounted bullets at oil tanking, Oman, and IOCL refinery at Odisha. As Meenu has rightly said, that oil industry safety directorate has got wide varieties of standards. These are followed in various industries, refineries, installations, LPG bottling plants. These are widely used. So Mr. Krishna Gopal will throw light on the salient features of oil industry safety directorate, as also who is heading that OSD, and also some of the standards also he will be talking about some of the standards also. I now invite Sri Krishna Gopal to come forward and present his presentation. Kindly share your presentation, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening to all of you.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Rajmohan sir and Dr. Ramesh sir, the Honorable Secretary of National Safety Council, for giving this opportunity for me. And it is really appreciable that Dr. Ramesh sir has organized such the knowledge sharing program for the benefit of all industrial members and students. So it is really commendable, that too in COVID situation. So I am also very happy to be a part of it, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
And first, let me introduce myself, and already sir has introduced. Actually, I am Krishna Gopal, having more than 32 years of experience in operation and safety, and I have worked in various petrochemical plant. And finally, for the past 15 years, I was associated with Indian Oil Tanking. Thereby, I worked in LPG bottling plant and bulk terminal at Chennai location, and also I have worked in POL terminal, jetty facility at Mumbai location. So thereby, I have gained some knowledge about oil and gas industries. Now I am retired from the service. It's all about me. Now let's move into this presentation. Today, the subject is an overview of OISD and its salient features. I hope most of you all aware of the OISD standards, especially those who are working in oil and gas industries. See, the OISD standards are good standards, and I can say it's a world-class standards developed by Oil Industry Safety Directorate for implementation of in all hydrocarbon industry, aiming to enhance its existing safety standards. So mainly these OISD standards are mainly applicable for oil industries, and it contains a series of self-regulatory measures which covers the area of design, layout, operation, and maintenance practices of all oil and gas industries. Before moving to this presentation, I will give brief on how and why the OISD was formed. Actually, you may all aware that oil industries are the energy lifeline for our nation, and its continuous performance is very much essential for our day-to-day life and also for the development of our country. But these industries are not like other industries because it deals with highly flammable substance, that is hydrocarbons, and due to physical condition and the process involved in high pressure and temperature, there is a possibility for accidental release of hydrocarbons due to leak or any loss of containment. So hence there is a risk for fire or explosion. Similarly, there is a risk for toxic gas release also. So that is why the safety is given paramount importance for all oil and gas industries, and extra vigilance is needed, and the commitment towards safety also must be ensured for all processing, handling, and storing and transportation of all petroleum products. And you may be aware that oil industries are existing for more than 100 years. But in those days, oil industries are designed on different technologies and operation philosophy. So there was no standardization in the area of design, layout, operation, and maintenance practices. But some companies are having collaboration with the foreign companies, and they have maintained some technical safety standard. But other oil industries are not having that much standard, and they have operated the facility as per their own convenience. So because of this, many accidents happen, causing loss of lives and damages to the properties worth crores of rupees. So the government of India intervened and want to have some control over it. So the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas formed one safety council to have a control over such situation. But this safety council is the apex body and which needs some technical assistance from the oil industry. So based on this requirement, the Oil Industry Safety Directorate, that is an advisory technical body, was established in the year 1986, and it consists of a core group of technical experts of different discipline deputed by oil industries. These technical experts are well experienced people and they have come from different organizations with the different knowledge. So they only formulated these OSD standards based on their experiences and the lessons learned from incidents, and also the exhaustive screening of literature and international codes and practices. So this is how the OSD came to the picture. So I hope now you will understand how and why the OSD was formed. Okay, now let's move on to this presentation, sir. Yeah, as I said earlier, the OSD, Oil Industry Safety Directorate, is a technical advisory body in India, established in 1986 by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. The OSD formulates and coordinates for implementation of series of self-regulatory safety measures in all hydrocarbon industry, aiming to enhance its existing safety standards. So the self-regulatory safety measures are in the form of standards, guidelines, and recommended practices, which covers the design, layout, operation, and asset integrity of all upstream and downstream operations of hydrocarbon industry. I hope you may all know about upstream. Upstream means exploration and production, that is onshore and offshore operations. And downstream means refinery operations, gas processing operation, pipeline transfer, storage and distribution operations, and marketing operations of fuel terminal, LPG terminal, and bottling plant, etc. And you may ask, what is standard, guidelines, and recommended practices? See, these standards are the documents which are related to design engineering. And these guidelines are the documents which gives direction for development of procedures. And the recommended practices are the documents which communicate best practices for operation and maintenance. So as I said earlier, the OSD consists of a small core group of technical experts of different discipline deputed from oil and gas industries. Now we'll move on to the next slide. Here, let us see the jurisdiction of OSD, that is applicability. So this is applicable for all exploration and production of onshore and offshore operations, all refinery operations, and pipeline operations in the storage, transportation, and distribution, and marketing of petroleum products, that is fuel and LPG, terminal and bottling plant, and processing of hydrocarbons for the production of bulk petroleum chemicals in large sector. So this is mainly applicable for oil and gas industries. It doesn't mean that it is only applicable for oil industries. Other industries also can follow these standards because they are also handling the petroleum products like HSD, LPG, LNG, CNG, naphtha for various purposes, mainly as fuel. So they can also follow these standards, and the objective of the standards are religiously implemented, and it may go a long way in enhancing your safety standards, and also you can ensure a safe atmosphere at your facility. And let us see the organization setup of OSD. Actually, the OSD is headed by one executive director, and he gets his direction and guidelines from the Safety Council. The Safety Council is headed by one secretary, the Secretary of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. And the OSD also having several groups and sections. For example, design and engineering group, exploration and production, that is onshore and offshore operations group, and refinery operations group, and pipeline group, and marketing coordination group like fuel, LPG operations, and the environment group. So each group, each section is having one individual director, additional director, and deputy director. They are all for carrying out the major activities of YSD. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Now let's see the functions of YSD. Actually, the YSD is coordinating with various committee, coordinating with the technical experts through various committee for carrying out its major activities. For example, to start with the Safety Council, it is an apex body headed by Secretary of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Its members are the officials of Additional Secretary, Joint Secretary from the same ministry, and the other members are CMD, CEO of Public, Private, and Joint Venture Sector of Oil Industries. That is, IOCL, HPCL, BBCL, ONGC, GAIL, and HMEL, Reliance, Vedanta. So all are members in this Safety Council. And statutory bodies of heads like Chief Controller of Explosives and Director General of Mines and Safety, DG Fastly, CEA, and Fire Advisory. There are so many statutory bodies also members of this Safety Council. And the next one is Steering Committee. To facilitate timely and effective communication with YSD, the CEO of respective oil industries nominate one senior level officer as coordinator. So they are called principal panelists, and they are also the member of the steering committee. The steering committee is chaired by the executive director of YSD. The next one is functional committee. This is an important committee which only evolving all the standards. So as I said earlier, it consists of technical experts from oil industry nominated by the principal panelist from the respective industry. So the leader of the functional committee is called principal author. So the next one is functional panel. So it consists of all directors from YSD and the external expert from the related field. We'll move on to the next slide, sir. So here we will see how the standardization, all the activities related to standardization, like framing of any new standard and revision amendment of existing standards. These are all identified by observations made by YSD members during external safety audit of various installations and findings of incidents happening in various petroleum industries, and the topic decided in steering committee and safety council meeting as per the request of industry members. And if there is any latest technological developments, that is also will taken into account, and request from various ministries for creating safety standards for a new targeted area. So the topics so identified will be finalized in the steering committee for preparation of a new standard. So the 3-digit number will be given by EDS department of OSD. So we'll move on to the next slide. Here we will see how the new standards are being prepared, the development framework. As I said, the topic was finalized and the area was identified for the preparation of new standard by steering committee. The steering committee is the principal panelist. They will nominate 1 or 2 technical experts from the respective company for forming the functional committee. So they are the functional committee members, and they will select their leader in the first committee meeting itself. So the functional leader is called principal author. So, and one more YSD coordinator also will be in the committee as a member, and his responsibility is to coordinate with other committee, and also he will developing the standard from draft stage to the final stage. That is his main responsibility. So in the functional committee, schedule will be prepared, and the leader of the committee will assign the responsibility to the committee members as per their expertise level in the field. So the committee members also will start drafting the document based on their experiences, lessons learned from incident, and also referring international codes and practices. Once they completed the draft copy, they will submit the document to the functional committee leader. The functional committee leader will compile all the document, and he will make a single new document of revision 0. So again, this will be deliberated in the committee meeting for some additions and omissions. Then finally, the draft copy will become a revision 1. So as I said, the OSD coordinator also the member in this functional committee. So he will pass on the document to the functional panelist for vetting purpose. And he will give presentation with the functional panelist about the new standards. And the functional panelist members also will go through the document and they will give their suggestions for improvement. So the OSD coordinator, again, he will brought back the document to the functional committee for making necessary corrections. And after incorporating all the corrections, the OSD coordinator, the document will become revision 2. So the revision 2 document will be uploaded in the official website of OSD by the OSD coordinator, and he will give advertisement in the leading newspaper about the hosting of document in the official website. The purpose is mainly for getting comments from public and also professional bodies. So the document will be in the official website for about 1 month. So after getting comments from the public, again the document will be brought back to the functional committee, and if there is any comments related to that, the same will be incorporated in the document, and the document will become revision of 3. So the OSD coordinator will circulate the revision copy among the steering committee members, that is the principal panelist, and the principal panelist also will go through the document and they will give their comments. So again, the comments will be discussed by the OSD coordinator with functional committee leader and also the OSD directors. And after incorporating all the changes, the document will become a revision 4. The same will be again resubmitted to the steering committee for adoption. Once the document is approved by the steering committee, the document will be circulated among the safety council members. So the safety council members also will give comments if any, or otherwise they will approve the document. If any comments is there, then OSD coordinator will discuss with the functional committee leader and also the OSD directors and incorporate all the changes. Then finally, the document will become a revision 5. The revision 5 will be again resubmitted to the safety council for approval. So once the safety council approve the document, then it will be released as a final document. Then printout will be taken. So the new standards are scheduled to be revised once in 4 years based on the experiences gained while implementing the standard and also based on the latest technological development. This is how the new standards are being prepared in OSD. Now, in the next slide, we are going to see the main activities of OSD. So the standardization is one of the major activities of Oil Industry Safety Directorate, and OSD is conducting pre-commissioning safety audit of new units. Now it has become mandatory. So PESO authorities are demanding the complaints report of pre-commissioning safety audit for issuing license of new units. And OSD is conducting external safety audit and surprise safety audits of running plants. And OSD is investigating major accidents taking place in various petroleum industry and recommending the corrective measures to avoid the recurrence of similar accidents. And the OSD accord consent to operate offshore operations as per Petroleum and Natural Gas Safety in Offshore Operations Rule 2008. They are the competent authority for giving consent to offshore operations. And dissemination of sector-specific knowledge through seminars, workshops, and in-house publications. So OSD is organizing international conference, seminar, and workshop. The purpose is mainly for cross-learning and to know any latest technological development, and also motivating the external expert, the technical expert, to take part in workshop. And the OSD is having incident database for all incidents, and also they are releasing case study, newsletter, and safety alert through in-house publications. And the OSD is evaluating the performance of all oil industries and giving awards annually. Even individual awards also given for the people based on their contribution towards the safety and also the innovation idea they have given for improvement of safety. And the OSD is coordinating for oil spill response facilities also. Now let's move on to this next slide. So as I said earlier, it is a world-class standard because OSD is having knowledge partnership internationally. So Memorandum of Understanding, MOU with the Bureau of Safety and Environment Enforcement, USA, Offshore Safety, July 2006. So they are conducting joint audit of Indian offshore operations, and the BSCC experts, they are also participating in the OSD workshop, and technical assistance and capability development was established between those two. And the MOU with the CCPS, that is Center for Chemical Process Safety, American Institute of Chemical Engineers, USA, and Process Safety of Chemical Plants. So they are exchanging the incident database so that the accidents worldwide happening will be known to them, and they are sharing the process safety among themselves. And MOU with the American Petroleum Institute, May 2014, and they are OSDs in the membership, having membership in National Association of Corrosion Engineers, World LPG Association, International Association of Drilling Contractors, and American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and Underwriters Laboratories, USA. So nationally, they are membership in BAS and Central Boiler Board. We'll move on to the next slide. See, OSD is not a statutory body actually. So it is not penalizing any oil industry for non-compliances. It is only a facilitator to implement the safety standards at all oil and gas industries. But it has got some statutory power. So the OSD has been designated as competent authority to exercise powers and functions as stipulated in Petroleum and Natural Gas Safety in Offshore Operations Rules 2008. So it has got some statutory power. And you may aware there are statutory bodies all along to oversee the safety aspects of oil industries. But the quality and the relevance of these standards are well endorsed by statutory bodies and adapted in various statutory rules. So 11 numbers of standards become mandatory as per Petroleum Rules 2002 and amended in 2011, and Gas Cylinder Rules 2016, and Static Mobile Unfired Pressure Vessel Rules 2016. And 16 numbers of standards included in the Oil Mine Safety Regulations 2017. But there was a proposal for giving statutory power for OSD by transferring part of the responsibilities of PESO authorities, but due to some reasons, it was not materialized. But there was a proposal is there. Okay, now let's move on to this next slide, sir. So the mandatory standards as per petroleum rules. The OSD standard 105 has been developed for work permit system. See, the work permit system is mandatory for all oil and gas industries, and they have to follow the standard 105 to ensure no standardization, and if there is any deviation, is the breach of petroleum rules. So this gives the standard 105 gives guideline for procedure of work permit system, permit conditions, and the role of issuing authority, role of performing authority, and all the auditing of permits and closing of permits. Everything has been clearly given, and they have given the samples of various work permits with the color codes. So actually the cold work will be in yellow color, and the composite permit of hot work and confined space entry permit will be in pink color, and the electrical permit will be in the blue color. So if you go through this standard, you will prepare a procedure for work permit system of your own facility. So it's a very good guideline for preparation of procedure. And the fire is the major hazard as far as oil and gas industry is concerned. So the OSD has developed many OSD standards pertaining to fire production facilities. So the fire production facilities, the standards gives the details about design aspects and also details of various firefighting facilities to be provided, firefighting equipments to be provided for oil and gas industries. The OSD standard 116 is meant for refineries and gas processing plants, and this 117 standard is meant for petroleum depot terminals and pipeline transfer operations. And another OSD standard 118 also an important standard. So which has been developed for layout for oil and gas installations. So these standards mainly, it says about the segregation of facilities, mainly for proper access, proper approach for firefighting operations, and also prevent the spreading of fire from one facility to another facility. So another OSD standard 141 is developed for design and construction requirement for hydrocarbon cross-country pipelines. Actually, in refinery, the products, what are all the finished products are transferred to the marketing locations through cross-country pipeline only. So the marketing locations also having facility, and they will receive the product through cross-country pipeline, and they will store in their tank farm. From there, they will dispatch the product in bulk quantities through tanker trucks, wagons, or sometimes through pipeline also. So the OSD standard 156, this is also fire protection facilities for ports handling hydrocarbons, because we are importing petroleum through ports only. So this has been developed for that purpose, the OSD standard 156. And the mandatory standards as per gas cylinders rules and SMPV rules, the static mobile pressure vessel rules. The OSD standard 144, liquefied petroleum gas installations. It's specifically made for liquefied petroleum gas. And you may aware the LPG is highly dangerous explosive gas. So they have taken much care, and they have covered all the areas of design, layout, operations, asset integrity, firefighting facility, emergency preparedness, training, auditing, and everything has been covered in this OSD standard 144. And the 144 also having a checklist for a daily safety audit checklist are there, and checklist for electrical internal safety audit, and they are giving checklist for maintenance of diesel fire engines. So you can get everything from this 144, and I can say this is the role model standard for other OSD standards. Recently, the OSD standard 244 has been developed for the storage and handling of petroleum in fuel terminals. So this is that was developed in line with standard 144 only, as per the recommendations given by MPLAL committee. So the OSD standard 150 is has been developed for design and storage requirement of LPG mounted storage, and the OSD standard 169 and developed for guidelines for small LPG bottling plants. So far we have seen the overview of OSD. Now let us see the salient features of OSD. So far 121 standards have been developed by OSD for implementation, but no very important standards only chosen, and the important extracts of the standard and the important aspects only we are going to discuss today. And this to start with, we have taken the standard 118, that is layout for oil and gas installations. So as I said, it is only segregation of facility, mainly for firefighting operations, providing proper firefighting operations, and also spreading of fire from one facility to another facility. So let us see the plant layout philosophy. So the layout of block and facility should be in sequential order as per the process flow chart. You are receiving the raw material, processing it, and finishing it as a final product. So this facility should be in the sequential order as per the process flow chart. So alternate access should be provided for each block and facility, and all process units and tank farm dikes should be planned in separate blocks with roads around the blocks. These are all the alternate access and the roads around the blocks. These are all mainly for approach of firefighting operations, and also spreading of fire from one facility to the another facility. The road in between the two facilities will act as a fire barrier, so the spreading of fire can be prevented. And the orientation of flares, heaters, and furnaces and cooling towers should be decided based on prevailing wind direction. So the purpose is actually the flares, heaters, furnaces should be located in the upwind direction of process area. The purpose is to prevent the moving of hydrocarbon gas or vapors towards the source of ignition from the process area. So similarly, the cooling tower should be located in the downwind direction of process area and substations, because the fog generated from the cooling towers will obstruct the vision and sometimes causing heavy corrosion to the process equipments, and also causes short circuits of electrical installations. That is why the cooling tower should be located in the downwind direction. And two road approach from highway or main road should be designed, should be provided for the facility, one for employees and another for material movement, or otherwise one emergency exit should be made available. So this can be used for evacuation of trucks from the factory during emergency, or sometimes we can receive the emergency vehicle like fire tender and ambulance from the mutual aid members. So then the process units, tank farm, substation, and solid storage utilities, ETP, and approach road should be located on higher ground to avoid flooding. So already we have experienced the flooding. So all the factories, all the units have suffered like anything. And after flooding also, it is very difficult to resume the operations because of the flooding effects. So minimum separation distances between the blocks should be maintained as per table 1 of standard 118. So the standard 118, the minimum separation distance, everything has been given. If you go through the document, you will very well understand. And this is the model plant layout. So the blocks have been separated by roads and escape routes. Everything has been marked in that. And let's see the process layout philosophy. So locating specific equipments as per process requirements are most important. The spacing between equipment should be adequate for easy operability and also easy maintenance. The minimum separation distance between equipment should be followed as per table 2 in standard 118, and heater should be located at one corner at upwind direction, and guidelines as per standard 118 to be followed, because everything we cannot bring it to this. So for example, the control room should be located in the upwind direction in a higher elevation with the blast-proof construction, and there should not be any overhead electric line crossing the facility and the truck parking area. Like that, there are so many guidelines they have given. If you go through the document 118, you will understand very well. Okay, now move on to the next slide. The storage tank layout philosophy. Actually, the storage tanks shall be located inside the dike only, so as to contain the spillages in case of tank failure. And the dike volume shall be equal to the volume of biggest tank in the dike, plus in addition to the 200 mm of freeboard. And the roads for fire tender movement should be provided on all four sides of the dike. Here, the road's width is very important, and the road radii at the road junction should also be designed in such a way that movement of larger fire trucks, that is more important. And the process equipments, pump station and piping manifold should not be located inside the dike area. So even earth pit also should not be located in the inside the dike area. It should be outside of the dike area only. And tank height shall not be more than 1.5 times of tank dia, or 20 meters, whichever is lower. And aggregate capacity of tanks located in one dike should not exceed 60,000 KL for group of fixed roof tanks and 1,20,000 KL for group of floating roof tanks. Then we will move on to the next slide. Here, this is very basic thing that everybody should know. That's what I wanted to inform you. The classification of fire, the petroleum products also classified based on the flash point. So here the liquids having flash point below 23 degrees centigrade is categorized as class A petroleum, and liquid having flash point of 23 degrees C and above but below 65 degrees centigrade C is categorized as class B petroleum, and liquid having flash point of 65 degrees centigrade and above but below 93 degrees centigrade is categorized as class C petroleum. and liquid having flash point of 93 degrees centigrade and above categorized as excluded petroleum. Excluded petroleum, for example, the furnace oil, bitumen, these are all comes under excluded petroleum. And liquefied gases, including LPG, do not fall under this classification. That is a different classification. So the next standard we are taking for discussion is the OISD standard 113 classification of area. This is mainly for selection and installation of electrical equipment instruments inside the hazardous area. So the area classification is the method of analyzing and classifying the environment where explosive atmosphere may occur. So actually, we cannot rule out the presence of explosive atmosphere where the processing, handling, and storing of petroleum facility. Because if you take this fire triangle, it's a basic fundamental which tells how why the fire burns, and also suggesting the way for fire prevention and also fire extinguishment. As per this, the working environment is hazardous. We cannot rule it out. So that is our business. So we cannot avoid such no explosive atmosphere. Similarly, the air is present in abundance and the oxygen will be in 21%. So we have to breathe, and that also we cannot avoid. So only thing we can control is ignition source. So if you go to any oil or gas industry, you can see the hazardous area and non-hazardous area. It will be bifurcated. The plant area will be hazardous area and non-hazardous area. So nobody can enter inside the hazardous area. Only authorized persons are allowed inside. Even if you want to go inside, you will be fixed by the security and all the source of ignition, camera, mobile, and all igniting material and battery operated items are prohibited. Similarly, all vehicles, only authorized vehicles are allowed to go inside, and that too also fixed with spark arrestor in its exhaust pipe. So inside also, if you go some bottling plant, you can see the mastic flooring. So that's mainly to avoid generation of any spark due to accidental falling of any metal objects. And for maintenance purpose, they will use non-sparking tools, and flame-proof and intrinsically safe equipments will be used inside. So all the measures they are taking for elimination of ignition source. In spite of that, we cannot ensure 100% elimination of ignition source, because it may generated at any point of time. For example, the hidden thing of static electricity and lightning, and even a nail in your shoes also may create spark. So we must always assume that the ignition source is present, and we should not allow the hydrocarbon mixed with air in right proportions. That means any leak, any small leak should be dealt very serious. Okay, and another thing is when it will get ignited. Actually, the hydrocarbon gases and the air both should be in right proportions. The explosive atmosphere is nothing but hydrocarbon vapors or gases and air. So it should be in right proportions. The right proportions means it should be in between the lower explosive limit and upper explosive limit. That is explosive limit range. So we should know what is LEL and what is UEL. Let us see the LEL. LEL is the minimum concentration of gases, vapors in the air, below which explosive atmosphere will not be formed, and it will not get ignited even if you introduce any source of ignition. So here the concentration of gases, vapors will be less, and the oxygen percentage is high. It's about 21% of oxygen is in the air. So the concentration of gas vapors is not adequate to form a flammable mixture. So that is called lean mixture. Here the maximum concentration of gases, vapors in the air, above which the explosive atmosphere will not be formed, and it will not get ignited even if you introduce any source of ignition. That is UEL. Here the concentration of gases, vapors will be more, and the oxygen is not sufficient to have a right proportions. So that is called rich mixture. So the both lean mixture and the rich mixture, both of which do not support any combustion. So if it is the within the flammable range, that is in between LEL and UL, if you know, if it comes in contact with any source of ignition, it will result into fire or explosion. So the fire risk is more, but the level of fire risk is mainly depending on frequency and duration of occurrence of such flammable atmosphere. So hence it is very much essential to analyze the area in zone wise. So let us see how the zone classification has been done. So the zones are classified as zone 0, zone 1, zone 2. So zone 0 means an area in which an explosive atmosphere is present continuously or for longer period or frequently. For example, vapor space above the closed process vessels or open tanks of volatile flammable substances. There will be always that explosive atmosphere will be present continuously. In the zone 1, an area in which an explosive atmosphere is likely to occur in normal operations occasionally. For example, while doing any maintenance job, some spills will be there during breakdown or maintenance, and while opening the flange of any pipeline, and some fugitive emissions will be from the vents or drains, etc. And also imperfectly fitted seals of floating roof tanks. So this will happen occasionally in normal operations. And zone 2, an area in which an explosive atmosphere is not likely to occur, but if it occurs, it will persist for short period only. That is, example is locations adjacent to zone 1 area. Suppose if any hydrocarbon released due to some problem, it will not exist for more than a minute, because it will get dissipated with the air due to wind direction below its LEL limit. Let's move on to this next slide. So the extent of zones depends upon the estimated or calculated distance before it disperses to a concentration in air below its LEL. It will dissipate it in the air immediately. So it depends on the distance only. So bifurcation of hazardous area, non-hazardous area. So as I have told already, all facility will be bifurcated as hazardous area and non-hazardous area. Sometimes they may call it licensed area and non-licensed area. So the area classification drawing should be prepared and approved for all hydrocarbon installations. It should be approved by PESO also. So this is a statutory requirement and it has to be displayed in the plant. And the electrical equipment fitting should be of appropriate safety rating as per OST standard 149 table 3. Only explosion proof, flame proof, intrinsically safe equipments, instruments allowed inside hazardous area. So here some of the examples, the FLP motor, the next one is non-FLP motor. So that is flame proof. Flame proof means this enclosure withstand the explosions inside and prevent the propagation of flame outside. So in such a manner it has been constructed. So that is flame proof enclosure. And the intrinsically safe means the spark produced is not capable of igniting any flammable atmosphere. So actually the current itself it will be in between 4 to 20 milliamps, which will not give enough intensity for creating any spark or heat, thermal heat. Then interlock for loading. So now truck loadings are before giving before loading any trucks, earthing is very important to avoid static charges. So now earth interlock system has been adapted for all industries. So if earthing was not provided, you cannot load the trucks. Even during loading also, if earth got disconnected, the loading will be suspended. So this system also followed in all oil and gas industries. And while taking samples from the road tanker or transfer of any flammable fluids from barrel to other container, the container should be earthed properly to avoid static charges. This is also important practices. Everything has been clearly mentioned in the OST standards. If you go through the standards, all precautions, guidelines, you can get everything. It's a ready reckoner. And there are so many OST standards have been developed for, especially for electrical. So the electrical related OST standards are now we have discussed about 113, the classification of area electrical installations. The OISD standard 137 is meant for inspection of electrical equipment. The OISD standard 147, inspection of safe practices during electrical installations. And OISD standard 149 is meant for design aspects of safety in electrical system. And OISD standard 180 is specially made for lightning arrestor protection. And OISD 110 is made for no static electricity. Now let's move on to this next slide. See, the fire protection also very, very important as far as oil and gas industry is concerned, because fire is the major hazard. So they have developed many standards for only firefighting facilities, and it describes the design aspects and also the details of various firefighting equipments to be provided for the petroleum industry. The design aspects means you can design calculations for fire water. They have given a guideline for how to calculate the fire water demand. So if you go through this, you can compare the design for fire water calculations with your own unit, or you can develop on your own also. So many standards have been developed for firefighting facilities. These standards we have already seen in the previous slide, 116 and 117. This is meant for refineries and gas processing plant and petroleum depots, terminals and pipeline installations. And OISD standard 144 is developed for LPG installations. And OISD standard 156 is developed for port handling hydrocarbons. And the OISD standard 194 is for LNG terminal storage and handling. And OISD standard 226 is for natural gas transmission and city gas distribution. And 235 is for aviation fuel stations. And OISD standard 236 is for refrigerated LPG terminal. And OISD standard 115 is guidelines for the firefighting equipments. And one more OISD standard 142 also is there. This is for maintenance of firefighting equipments. See, the fire production design consideration and criteria. So actually the fire production facility for any factory should be decided based on the nature of industry and the risk involved in the industry. Based on this, the fire storage, the fire water storage and the capacity of the pump should be determined. The storage of fire water should be minimum 4 hours aggregate working capacity of pumps, and it shall be designed considering 2 simultaneous major fires or single fire on largest tanks, that is roof sinking case, whichever is higher. For marketing locations like POL, single fire design basis if total capacity of petroleum storage is less than 30,000 KL. If it is more than that, double contingency plan should be adopted. Then fire water system shall be designed for minimum residual pressure of 7 kg per cm square at the hydraulically remotest point. So all tank farms and other areas shall be covered by fire water hydrants and monitors. An automatic water spray system for provided for pressurized storages, including LPG and hydrogen storages. Water storage and backup. So these facilities are to be located far away from the hazardous area, so that mostly in the perimeter of the industry, so that any backup facility also may be available for unloading of water tankers, etc. So it can be either of above ground tanks or underground tanks of concrete line storage. The storage should be in 2 numbers of equal interconnected reservoirs, because if one tank is taken for maintenance, the other tank will be available. So the water storage should be minimum 4 hours capacity of main pumps, that fire water pumps, and the water should be dedicated only for firefighting purpose. It should not be used for any other purpose like gardening. And adequate backup water flow in case of fire. In case of any fire situations, we should have adequate backup water facility. Suppose if you are having any other raw water storage or cooling tower, and we should have a hookup with the fire water system to use it during emergency purpose. And some industry, they are having hookup with the neighboring company hydrant lines, because during emergency they can use the other company, the neighboring company water also. This should come through mutual aid scheme. And fire water pump hose. So in fire water pump hose, the jockey pumps should be provided, one for operation and one for standby to maintain the header pressure of 7 kg per cm square. 5 to 10% of capacity of design water flow rate should be, it should be designed for 5 to 10% of capacity of design water flow rate, and dedicated power supply should be provided for jockey pumps. And fire water pump, it should be electrical diesel driven horizontal or vertical pipes pumps, and pumps should be of capacity between 400 cubic meters per hour to 1000 cubic meters per hour, and all pumps should be of same capacity and head characteristics. Minimum 50% of the pump should be diesel driven pumps, and because during the power failure, diesel driven pumps will be we can operate. So standby pumps over and above design considerations should be provided, and PLC based automatic sequential startup pumps should be ensured. So the logic, pump logic should be available. Fire water distribution and hydrant monitors, looping and maintainability to be ensured. This is closed loop system should be followed, because to ensure the multi-directional flow and uniform pressure in the hydrant network. And it should be of either above ground except for road crossing or other engineering considerations, and fire hydrant at every 30 meters with individual isolation valve, and monitors at strategic locations like clusters of columns, heaters, compressors, and both hydrants and monitors should be located 15 meters away from the any facility. And fire water distribution and hydrant monitor, water foam monitors in railway and tank truck loading gantries to be provided, and HVLR, that high volume long range monitors at more critical locations of higher elevations and tank pumps should be provided. It is available for water foam monitors also available for high volume long range monitors. Fixed water spray system. It should be provided for all storage tanks of Class A petroleum tanks, and Class B petroleum and floating roof tanks having more than 30 meters dia, and fixed roof tanks of dia 20 meters, more than 20 meters dia. We should provide a fixed water spray system. And semi-fixed foam, all fixed and floating roof tanks of Class A and Class B petroleum, we should provide a semi-fixed foam system. And fixed roof tanks of Class C petroleum of more than 40 meters dia, that also we should provide semi-fixed foam system. And rim seal foam system. So the automatic rim seal fire protection system for all Class A petroleum tanks, that is floating roof tanks. Actually, the rim seal fires are those occurs in the edge of rim seal region and of floating roofs. If the seal damage, the vapor inside the tank comes out and mix with the air, and it will get ignited during lightning situation. So rim seal fire protection system should be provided, and the modular foam tanks will be located at the top in the equidistances, and the linear heat reduction tube is sensing the heat. Within 10 seconds it will operate, and the modular foam is pressurized with the nitrogen gas, so it will release the foam, and the entire rim will be rim fire will be extinguished immediately, instantly. Unit area automatic water spray system for LPG tanker, truck, wagon loading gantry, and uninsulated vessels of more than 50 cubic meters of Class A and Class B products, vessels inaccessible to fire tenders, process columns of more than 45 meters height, and Class A pumps under the pipe rack. These are all we should provide sprinkler system. And detection and alarm system, that is gas monitoring system, early warning of gas concentrations below the LEL, lower explosive limit. The detectors for the gas monitoring system strategically located at all facilities close to potential source of leak. The detection control equipment provided in the control room for continuous monitoring even during power failure. The UPS supply, it should be given UPS supply. The control equipment generate at least 2 alarms at different levels of concentration of gas below LEL. One will be 20% of LL and next one is the 60% of LL. And air intake point for control room is in line with OISD standard 163. So the OISD 163, if you go through this and you can know about the guidelines for maintaining the control room. And fire siren, hand siren should be provided to announce the emergency, and the tank, all the tanks high level alarm should be provided. The alarm should be interlocked with the inlet MOV or ROV to prevent overflow, and smoke detectors and fire alarm panels should be provided in the control room. Then communication system should be established by way of telephones, public address system, fire sirens, walkie-talkie sites, and fire alarm system, EMCP and ETP, emergency shutdown buttons and manual call points. The manual call points and these are connected with the fire alarm panels. So if this one operated, and we can get a audio visual alarm at the control room. The emergency trip buttons, if you operate the emergency shutdown button, you will get a alarm in the control room and siren will be started, and the power supply to the all prime movers will be cut off, and all ROV of the tanks will be closed on its own. So this system should also be available. And the testing of fire protection system. The regular testing of all systems as per periodically mentioned in the standard to be ensured so as to ensure their functionality in real fire scenario. So this can be ensured by conducting mock drill. So mock drill should be conducted imitation of some scenarios should be selected. This is mainly to check the reaction of people for such emergency, and also to ensure the healthiness of your system, emergency system and firefighting facilities. And fire control room. Fire station should be located at minimum risk area. It should be spaced at a safe distance from any process plant and other hazardous area. So in standard 118 also it has been clearly mentioned. And reliable communication system is must for supporting effective fire service. And the fire station should have 2 overhead storage tanks for foam compound storage, so that during emergency refilling is not delayed. So emergency power supply should be ensured for fire station and fire water pump house. The fire station should have prominently located pressure gauge showing fire water network pressure. So now let's see the salient features of OISD standard 144. This is exclusively developed for LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. So you should know the characteristics of LPG. So LPG at atmospheric temperature and pressure is 1.5 times heavier than air. So it tends to settle down at the floor level. That is why the gas sensors are fixed 1 foot above the ground level. And the LPG having the exposure range of 1.8 to 9.5%. The LEL is 1.8 and the UEL is 9.5%. That's very high fire hazard. LPG has low viscosity around 0.3 CST and at 45 degrees centigrade, thus demanding very high integrity in pressurized system to avoid leakage. So that's why the LPG pumps are given a double mechanical seal to prevent such leakages. And water is insoluble in LPG, thus any water present in the system can cause corrosion. Minor leakages can cause freeze up of drain valve and EFCV, external excess flow check valve and regulator, etc. The degree of fire hazard is very high due to boiling point, low boiling point, high expansion ratio, that is 1:250, and high burning velocity of 0.38 meter per second. So the LPG plant layout considerations. Layout shall permit access from at least 2 directions. There should be 2 gates should be available for such layout. The longitudinal axis of the bullets shall not be pointed towards other critical equipments or any control room. The storage vessel shall be laid in single row, shall not be located one above the other. The access to mobile firefighting equipments to storage vessels should be from 2 sides. So alternate access also should be provided. Grouping of the vessel not exceeding 6 members in each group. The top surface of all vessels in one group on the same plan. The maximum number of LPG tank lorry bays shall be restricted to 8 in one group. The LPG tank lorry truck loading bays. So, and the trucks also should be parked facing towards the exit, and there should not be any reversing or turning practice during any emergency. And the LPG storage options, the horizontal bullets are there. So if you want to store a low volume of ranging from 50 meter cube to 500 meter cube, you can go for horizontal bullets, and it can be fabricated in the workshop and transferred and erected on foundation at site itself. So then the sphere, we should fabricate it in the site itself, and it cannot be transferred from one place to another place, and it is suitable for handling moderate volume of ranging from 500 meter cube to 2000 meter cube. So the refrigeration storage, if you want to store large quantities of LPG for about 10,000 to 15,000 metric ton, it is best we can store it in double walled refrigerated tank storage. The another one is mounted bullet. The mounted pressurized bullets offer a safe option and eliminates the possibility of BLE, that is boiling liquid expanding vapor cloud explosion. A storage vessel sited above ground and covered by mound of the earth. So it is fully covered by the earth. Then cover and storage. So another safe method for storage of very large quantities of LPG. Suppose you want to store 1 lakh tons or more than that, you can go for cavern storage. The LPG stored in mined artificial caverns at depth of 160 meter to 200 meter below the sea level. So they are drilling the rocks under the sea level of about 160 meter to 200 meter and making a tunnel where they are storing the LPG. The storage principle, the main form of LPG storage is in bullets only. The LPG stored in bullets under pressure, and both liquid and the vapor will be in the equilibrium condition. Normally 80% of capacity is filled with liquid and the remaining is left for vapor, because the coefficient of expansion of LPG is very high. So some space should be left for expansion. As LPG drawn from bullet, the vapor pressure in the bullet drops and eventually the liquid boils and producing vapor and restore the pressure again. So when the liquid temperature drops, the vapor pressure also drops. See, mounted bullet storage, a storage vessel sited above ground and completely covered a mount of earth or similar in inert material except for nozzles and manhole covers. That is mounted storage. Why the mounted storage is needed? Because one incident has happened. The mounted storage brought into focus by the Mexico City gas distribution terminal disaster happened in November 1984. So actually 16,000 metric cube of LPG was stored in 6 spheres and 48 horizontal vessels. So LPG, when a leak and subsequent ignition occurred in the 8-inch filling line to one of the sphere, within 15 minutes, the boiling occurs, producing fireball of 350 meters diameter and engulfed the remaining spheres and bullets. The debris flew up to 1,200 meters distance, killing 500 people and injured 7,000 people. So after that incident only, the mounted storage system has come into picture. So the advantage of mounted bullets, boiling liquid expanding vapor cloud explosion is made virtually impossible. Actually, this is the most worst scenario of LPG storage, boiling liquid expanding vapor cloud explosion. This is catastrophic failure of LPG storage vessel. It is commonly occur in pressurized LPG storage vessel exposed to any external fire and not covered by a stream of water. So actually the LPG stored in the bullet under equilibrium condition, liquid and vapor. So when it is exposed to radiation heat or any impingement of flame, the LPG inside the vessel will start boiling, resulting increasing the vapor pressure. So when the vapor pressure goes beyond the design pressure of the vessel, the safety relieving system, that is SRV, will open and release the pressure in order to safeguard the vessel from explosion. So when the pressure is reduced inside the vessel, again the again the SRV will close. So due to continuous heating, the safety relief valve will open and close and releasing the vapor to the atmosphere. Here, one important point is to be noted. The liquid which is in contact with the surface, metallic surface of the vessel is safe because it absorbs the heat for changing its liquid to vapor. Whereas the metallic surface which is in contact with the vapor space is very vulnerable and there was no heat conduction. So that is very vulnerable area. And due to continuous heat and frequent opening and closing of the safety relief valve, the liquid level inside the vessel will start reducing and exposing more area of vapor space. So what happened due to heat, the vapor space will continuously heated and it will get deteriorated. At one point of time, any weakest point will rupture and open. So immediately 30 to 40% of the liquid will flash outside and equal amount mixed with equal amount of air and entrained as a mist. So the vapor mist is already fire is there in the outside, so it will catch fire, resulting in a very big fireball. So the fireball will be mushroom shape, and the fireball will last for very few seconds, but its effects are highly devastating. So the burning rate will be 1 ton per second. Just imagine, and it will release tremendous energy, several kilowatts per square meter. So, and also this will cause overpressure effects, and the parts of the bullet will be thrown out to a greater distance and causing secondary fire and also other damages. So boiling liquid expanding vapor cloud explosion is very dangerous, worst fire as far as this LPG is concerned. So this will be totally impossible because the bullet is fully covered by earth. So this is the advantage. Now all spears are now all the spears are PESO also recommending only for mounted bullets instead of spears. So hereafter the mounted bullets will be coming up. The vessel is protected against heat radiation from nearby fire, and the pressure wave originating from an explosion will not affect, and the effect by flying or impact by flying objects will not affect the bullet, and sabotage will not be there, and the safety distance to the site boundary can be reduced considerably. Suppose if you go for spears, the distance should be maintained. For mounted bullet, the space constraint is not that we can keep the distance is, you need not maintain a more distance. And similarly, the water sprinkler system, no extensive water deluge system are not required for mounted bullet. This system is required only for the exposed area, that is manual, and the decision only we need deluge system, the sprinkler system. And the fitting and instrumentation on mounted vessel. Actually, this you can see the figure. This is bullet bottom side. This one is internal configuration of bullet, mounted bullet. So this is stiffening ring, and inside the hollow space will be there. The ladder also will be provided. 2 manuals will be available for each bullet. So the bullet outlet, fire safe ROV at first flange on liquid line fixed 3 meters away from the vessel, and vapor outlet and recirculation either from bottom or top. So the ROV will be the first flange, will be the ROV will be fixed in the line. That 3 meter distance should be maintained, and the EFCV external excess flow check valve fixed at the bottom nozzle after ROV. After ROV, one excess flow check valve will be fixed. Excess flow check valve means, this is a spring loaded valve, check valve. Actually, the spring will be, the seat of the valve will be held open by the spring. So whenever if the fluid flow exceed the predetermined limit, or due to line puncture or any failure of the downstream side, immediately the valve will close automatically and instantly. So that is called excess flow check valve. So the ROV during power failure or instrumental air failure, two operation method. Actually, during power failure, the ROV should have manual override for opening or closing of ROV in case of instrument failure or power failure. And two valves in series should be provided for water draining from bullet. And deadman valve also should be provided to ensure the presence of operator all the time during water draining. And this is more critical operations, water draining operations, as far as all LPG storage is concerned. Many accidents have happened, and two valves in series has to be provided. One is for quick opening, and another on the throttle type, antifreeze type. And in between the two valves, one excess flow check valve also will be there to prevent in case of the, because this is mainly for while LPG is coming out, it requires heat, so it absorbs the heat from the surroundings and also from the product and the pipeline and other surroundings. So what happened, if any water is mixer is inside the pipeline, which will get freezed, and ice formation will be there, which will obstruct the valve, which will got trapped in the valve seat, and it will not close. So uncontrolled release of LPG will be there, and it will cause a very serious hazard. So this is very critical operation as far as water draining is concerned. And the cathodic protection system for prevention of corrosion, since it is fully covered by air material, so to avoid corrosion, cathodic protection system is provided, and the monolithic joints to isolate bullet from unprotected pipelines. So the impressed current will be there, so we should not contact to other pipelines. So monolithic joints are provided for all pipelines to isolate the bullet from unprotected pipelines. Fitting, and each vessel shall be provided with at least 2 numbers of safety relief valve, and its discharge line should be routed to flare or vented vertically to atmosphere at an elevation of 3 meters from top of the mount. So the 2 SRV, 2 number of safety relief valve should be provided, and that outlet should be routed to flare. If flare is not available, and it should be vented vertically to atmosphere at an elevation of 3 meters from top of the mount. So the isolation valve of the SRV should always be kept open in locked condition. And minimum 2 different types of level indicators working on different principles. One should be servo and one should be radar type should be available. The level instrument shall have facility to measure density and rate vapor pressure and temperature. Apart from that, pressure transmitter and temperature transmitter also will be available for each bullet. And one independent high level switch shall be provided, and high level alarm shall be set at 80% of the volumetric capacity of the vessel, because it should not be filled completely, and 15% should be left for expansion and vapor space. And these ROV should be interlocked with the and the interlock system should be ensured. If the level reaches to high level, it should have interlock with the ROV. The inlet of the vessel ROV should close automatically. One pressure and temperature measuring instrument shall be provided, and the pressure gauge shall be provided with 2 isolation valves and an excess flow check valve. Safety and security system for mounted bullets. Automatic fire detectors based on heat detection through thermal fuses and quartz light bulbs, and the detector shall be provided. An audio-visual alarm at the local main control panel and fire water station indicating the fire shall be available should be provided, and all ROVs on the affected vessel shall close. Suppose if in case of any emergency, if you are operating the ESD, what will happen? All ROVs on the affected vessel will close immediately, and the power supply to the prime mover, that is LPG pumps and compressors in the LPG storage area, will trip automatically. and sprinklers, if provided in the system, shall operate automatically, and siren will also start sounding. So push buttons for initiating all the above actions shall be provided on remote operating panel and also in the field. So we can operate from the field itself and also from the remote. And gas detectors near ROV and top exposed portion, that is the top end, and at water draining point should be provided. Audio-visual alarm showing the location of gas leakages shall be provided on the control panel in the control room. And the hydrants and monitors are considered for adequate coverage of unprotected portions exposed to thermal radiation, including the top of the mount and protect pipelines. Then the fireproofing, this is passive fire protection, that is fireproofing 2 hours rating of all exposed portion of the vessel is done, including piping up to the first ROV, apertures, etc. Maintenance inspection of mounted bullets, and these mounted bullets should be either tested once in 10 years, and NDT should be carried out once in 5 years. We have to decommissioning the bullet, and people will go inside, and they will do the non-destructive testing to check the integrity of weld joints and wall thickness of vessel, and that will be done for every 5 years once. And the settlement of vessel will be checked for every year, and the insulation joints and coupling for cathodic production will be checked for every year, and pressure relief valve, that safety relief valve, should be checked every year, and record should be maintained. And cathodic production system to be checked weekly, fortnightly, quarterly, yearly. As for this, the standard also explain about the cathodic production system and testing methods, everything. And as per the WIST standard 144, the emergency management system, the facility should have fire order system, and the ERDMP, emergency response disaster management plan, should be approved by PNGRB, should be made available. Fire organization chart, including plan for holiday and off shift. So while working and during holiday also should be available, and it should be displayed distinctively in the facility. And mutual aid scheme with the neighboring industry should be established. And monthly mock drill and on-site emergency drill once in 6 months on different scenario with mutual aid members and local administration, fire, police and hospital authorities should be carried out. Offsite emergency for district administration should be carried out at least for once in 2 years. And another, the salient features of 244 that I have already told. This 144, the 244 was developed in line with 144. So how it has been developed? On October 29, 2009, a major fire incident took place at IOCL POL terminal in Jaipur. So 11 people lost their lives, around 60,000 KL product burnt out, and total financial loss was about 280 crores. So the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas constitute a 7-member independent inquiry committee headed by Sri MP Lal to inquire into this incident. So MP Lal committee recommended 118 points. Out of that, 113 points are given for implementation. One of the MP Lal committee recommendation was a comprehensive standard covering all aspects, including design, operation, and maintenance, should be brought out by WIST in line with LPG installation, WIST standard 144. That's why I'm telling it's a role model standard. Thus, WIST standard 244 released in December 2015 after due approval of Safety Council. Provision of the standard shall be applicable to all petroleum depots and terminals. So if you go through the 244, you can very well understand about the storage and handling of petroleum products in POL terminal. So I hope you will understand all this. Now we come to the end. Thank you for your attention, sir.
Sir, I am having one doubt.
Yes, sir.
Sir, actually, you told that OST is not a statutory body,
Yeah.
but a lot of OST standards are there, especially for a different electrical, fire, everything.
Yes.
But if any factory or industrial storage activity, so they fail to comply with the OST standards, what penal action can be? Who is the authority to take penal action?
Actually, sir, it is not a statutory body to penalize any oil industry, but is only giving a guideline for implementation to enhance the safety standards, existing safety standards. It's only facilitate the industry to implement all the standards. But it is not a statutory. But there was a proposal to give statutory power by transferring some of the responsibilities of PESO, but it was not materialized due to manpower issues.
Sir, actually, the reason, the LG Polymers industry, so in that investigation report, so also mentioned that, so PESO is only a licensing agency. So it is that particular, if you go through that report, though it is specifically mentioned that PESO is only a licensing agency. They can give license only that. So they are not, but in your one of the slides, you have mentioned that you have made standards under SMVV rules and gas cylinder rules also. Some of the standards are under that. Yes. But if you prescribe some standards under that rule, so if they are not complying with such standards, whether PESO can take legal action on that?
Yes, sir, definitely. Because they have included 11 numbers of standards in the statutory rules also. The static mobile pressure vessel rules, the cylinder rules, and even the OSD standard 105 work to permit system, that also has become mandatory. If any non-compliance will be the breach of petroleum rules.
Sir, actually, another thing is, my second question is regarding the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board.
Yeah.
So actually, so whether it is under OST or it is a separate entity?
It's a separate entity only, sir.
So what is their jurisdiction and OST jurisdiction? Whether it overlap or, because in your one of your slide you have mentioned that regarding the pipeline. So in the first slide you have shown about that jurisdiction in pipeline operation in the storage and transportation. So PNGRB also mentioned about that.
Yes.
Is it correct, sir?
Yes, correct. Actually, the OSD is only a technical advisory body, and because it was prepared by the technical experts only. This is only for implementation, but only for guideline they are giving. But the other statutory, actually, the PNGRB and this PESO, these are all the statutory authorities, and they are taking the standards and included in this as statutory rules. Because it's very good standard, and now it has become mandatory as per the PNGRB also. They have taken about 25 standards, 60 standards of OSD as a PNGRB. They have taken as a statutory rules also recently.
So they can also take penal action.
Yeah. But OSD is not having any statutory power. But PNGRB can take any action against the industry.
Sir, my another question is, you told about the external safety audit and surprise safety audit.
Yes.
So what is the difference between these two, external safety audit and surprise safety audit?
But actually, the external safety audit will be organized. The industry will be knowing that these people are coming for audit. So they will prepare everything, and the audit will be conducted. But in the surprise audit, without information, they will come and audit the facility.
So this safety audit team consisting of multidisciplinary team, or your one or two officers are coming, or it is based on IS code checklist, or based on any criteria as per the OSD standard or anything?
And actually, separate OSD standard has been developed, sir, for auditing. Correct. The standard 145. which describes about the it is like checklist for the safety management system and the emergency system and everything. They are covering all the
because as per the Factories Act also, external safety audit as well as internal safety audit is mandatory.
yes,
So
mandatory as
whenever,
per IS they are doing, sir.
yes, sir. Whenever we are asking for external safety audit, they are submitting the safety audit conducted by the OSD. So that is why, because whether it can be accepted or that is a lot of doubts are there regarding that.
Yes, sir. Similarly, as per Factories Act, they have to conduct these the on-site emergency plan should be submitted and it should be get approved by Director of Industrial Safety and Health. But the PNGRB is demanding they have to prepare the ERDMP as per their guideline, PNGRB guideline. So once we have completed the PNGRB guideline, we have prepared the ERDMP. While we are submitting to the factory inspectorate, they are accepting it. They are not accepting it.
Correct.
They are demanding on-site emergency plan as per the guidelines given in the MSHSE rule, manufacture, storage, import of hazardous rules.
Correct, correct.
See, we don't want PNGRB. There are some controversies there, sir.
Correct, sir. Correct. Sir, actually, my question is, so you talked about the MPLAL Commission report. So
Yes.
MPLAL Commission report says that the dike volume should be 125%. Is it correct?
Yes,
so
sir.
whether it is OSD has adopted that in your code, or accordingly whether you modified the code, or you are saying that the volume of the largest tank plus some 210 mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
So whether OSD can follow that one, or which one we have to follow?
That's what the MPLAL committee also recommended, to prepare a separate standard for storage and handling of petroleum products. Based on that only, the standard 244 has been developed, sir. In the 244, everything has been given.
Oh, okay, sir. So, and sir, audible?
Yes, sir. Now I'm.
Yes. Sir, actually, regarding the cathodic protection for mounted storage,
Yes,
you
sir.
told about the cathodic, mentioned about the cathodic protection. Which type of cathodic protection? Actually,
Impressive current, sir. Impressive current cathodic protection.
Oh, so in that case, what about OSD prescribe any standard for the micronized soil potential value?
Yes, sir.
It is there.
Is there? How to maintain it, and every fortnight and weekly, the value, how much this value should be, everything has been mentioned in the OSD standard, sir.
Okay, sir. Very, very good presentation, and you covered a lot of things. I think in my knowledge also, I got a lot of new things regarding especially regarding the mounted storage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Ramesh.
Jaykumar. Hello, Jaykumar, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm audible, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Proceed, Jaykumar.
Yeah. My video is kept off. That's why.
Okay. No problem.
No problem. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Respected Pramod sir, the Director of Factories and Boilers and Chairman of the National Safety Council, today's eminent faculty Sri SP Krishna Gopal sir, Honorable Secretary, National Safety Council, and NSC officials and beloved participants, a warm good evening to all of you. Today we are blessed with a wonderful personality who have got years of experience in oil and gas sector. I know that all are aware of Oil Industry Safety Directorate. But during the last 90 minutes, the faculty have taken us to the minute details of OISD, consisting of jurisdiction, organization setup, various standard formulations, and fire protection systems, mounted storage details. We have well explained the various steps in the standard formulation procedure. I am sure that all participants could acquire more knowledge about function and activities of OISD. Before moving to my duty, one request to the participants: please fill up the feedback form attached in the chat box. Sri Pramod sir is the person who have made several reforms in Factories and Boilers department, and he is in the habit of taking all matters with an eye of safety and completeness. Even though he is very busy with official matters in the pandemic period, he accepted our invitation and joined here and inaugurated the webinar. On behalf of the National Safety Council, I would like to express sincere thank you, sir. I know Sri Krishna Gopal sir had been deputed to the commissioning of LPG mounted bullets in IOCL Paradip project. I had been worked there for the construction of it 9 years ago. It was a wonderful experience in my career. I express sincere gratitude to Sri SP Krishna Gopal sir, who had shared the valuable moments with us in the late hours. Sri Ramesh sir is a powerful driving force behind the activities of NSC. I also extend sincere thanks to you, sir. I also express sincere thanks to all the participants and the Minu Vijayan, who had taken all efforts to materialize the session in an appreciable manner. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Jaykumar.
Sir.
Hello, Jaykumar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jaykumar, some questions are there. Participants has asked some questions. Can you please go through it?
Please, 1 minute, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Krishna Gopal, some few questions are there.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Yeah.
One question is, sir, how can we get a book of OISD standards? Gaurav Singh Rajput. That's a question.
Sir, in the official website of OISD, we have to apply for that, and we have to pay something, sir. We have to pay and get it. And CD is also available.
Google proper information is not received. That's why he is asking.
Sir, actually, CDs are available in the OISD. So we have to apply through website only, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
OISD official website.
No more questions here.
Okay.
Ramesh sir, no more question.
Yeah. Okay, Jaykumar. So, yes. Krishna Gopal sir, thanks a lot for being with us and sharing your valuable experience to us in a simpler way. And also you asked to the questions answered also. So thanks a lot for being with us today, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Okay, yes. Sir. Okay. Right.
Thank
okay.
You.
Okay. Minu meeting wind up.
Okay.
Okay, right.
Okay, thank you all. Please fill up this feedback form. Attendees, please fill up this feedback form. Link are provided in the chat box.
Okay.
Okay. Participants, please fill up this feedback form. It was provided in the meeting chat.
Okay, kindly fill in that feedback form.